I'll open the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners for Monday, February the 14th, 2022 at 3 p.m. The first item for the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of Tuesday, January 18th, 2022, which were sent to the commissioners over the weekend. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, have a motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will now move to today's presentation. I'm going to recognize Mark Watson, County Manager, to introduce the presenters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We appreciate your time this afternoon. As you can tell, we have quite a few staff with us this afternoon to bring you information in the continuing series that we started several weeks ago relative to bringing the board information regarding the operations of each of these divisions. As you recall, in earlier meetings, the purpose of this is to prepare you for making decisions relative to the budget as those requests come forward later this year. One of the things that was important to me in updating you and bringing you up to speed was giving you a sense of what has been accomplished over the last 3 years, what are these departments and divisions currently engaged in, and then what does it look like over the next 24 to 36 months? Where are they headed? What are their priorities, and what are they planning? So with that, we have several presentations. We'll take those presentations in this order. First, finance. Second, the procurement division. Third, parks and recreation. And fourth, human services. And when we get to human services, there are a number of divisions within within human services, and we'll take each of those individually. So at this time, I'll ask Beverly Lyles if she'll come and make a presentation regarding finance. And by the way, you've been given strategic planning workshop binders, and you'll find the presentation materials within the identified tabs in the binder.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners and Manager. You all see me regularly, so you kind of have a great idea of what we do in the Finance Department. As far as our department and how we contribute to the strategic objectives for the county, I struggled a little bit with which one of these do we highlight, because we do a lot of these in conjunction with financing different things throughout the county. We try to maintain financial sustainability by working with all county departments, as well as organizational strengthening. We develop our workforce through shared values of the county. We train them in order to support all county departments. Without the county departments doing their services to the citizens, our jobs would not be needed in finance, and we realize that that's an important role for us to continue that public service effort out to the departments as our customers for finance. The overview of program and services for finance: we only have one program, which is finance. We're responsible, of course, for maintaining accurate and complete financial records in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. We have to abide by all North Carolina general statutes as it relates to budget and fiscal management. We also have to go by local and federal regulations. As you are aware, many of the grants that we get have federal regulation requirements and compliance issues. We also provide excellent customer service and meaningful and timely financial information to the public, to you as the board, and to our management team. The day-to-day operational services that finance provides to the county is payroll, which is a very important part of what we do. Accounts payable, accounts receivable. We maintain all the treasury banking services for the county. We do all the cash and investments for the county. We maintain our grants, as well as we do the long-term capital planning and financial strategic objectives that come with that. And we also perform our annual audit in conjunction with our external auditors and provide financial statements annually. The current investments for the county, we have a FTE count of 10. We have 9 positions that are currently established. One of those is a new position we're currently recruiting for, thanks to your adding that into our budget for FY22. We appreciate that. The only revenue source that we actually report in finance is a procurement card or a credit card rebate. We use a portion of that to pay for one of our accounting technicians that maintains our P-card statements on a monthly basis for reconciliation purposes. The total county cost for finance is $1,082,000. We're a central service department, so we don't generate enough revenue to cover our expenses. That's up a little bit from the FY21 budget, and the reason for that is our finance department, if you recall, went through a reorganization in last year, and that added some additional cost to us that was previously allocated out to procurement budget and the IT department. Measuring success. As an internal service department, it's hard for us to actually put numbers on paper to measure our success. We do a lot of transactions, but does that really measure our success as a finance team? I don't think so, because the more volume doesn't necessarily mean you're successful. However, we have other things that we measure our success by for county finances. We have an annual audit each year that determines our success in maintaining our financial records, and as well as being in compliance with any external compliance documents. We also do the GFOA award, which means we get a review from GFOA that has experts in financial reporting to determine, are we successful in our financial reporting capabilities. As you're aware, we also get rated by credit rating agencies anytime we go to the bond market. And in addition to that, in North Carolina, we have the LGC oversight, which means we can't do anything financially without their approval. And if we get off track, they have the right to actually come in and take over the county's finances and maintain that for us. So by staying off of their watch list, that helps us determine if we are successful as well. Our recent accomplishments. In 2019, as well as 2020, you're aware we received the GFOA Achievement in Excellence for Financial Reporting, as well as the GFOA Outstanding Achievement for our popular financial report. We also received our upgrade from Standards & Poor's in 2019. Our previous credit rating was a AA+. We were upgraded to AAA, and that brought all 3 of our credit rating agencies up in 2019 to AAA across the board, which is something we're very proud of and we want to maintain. In 2019, we also issued 4 different series of general obligation bonds to secure funding for various long-term capital projects. The majority of that was for Emergency Services Complex, the Sheriff's Office, and obtaining the industrial park. In fiscal year 21, our department went through a reorganization. We created 2 separate teams within finance. We have a finance team and an accounting team to separate those duties so they can focus on one job function at a time. We also issued 2021 revenue bonds. As you're aware, that secured funding for most of that was for the Yadkin Regional Water Supply Project. We also issued Series 2020 installment financing to secure funding for the Union County Progress Building. We created the ad hoc committee to work in conjunction with Union County Public Schools and South Piedmont Community College to create a long-term educational capital plan. In 22, our accomplishments that we are currently working on is issuing Series 2022 2/3 general obligation bonds. We recently had the public hearings about that at the last meeting. We also have created a new AP vendor authentication, validation, and management toolkit for onboarding new vendors or any vendor change request that come through our accounts payable department. We've added 1 additional staff member to obtain an administrative assistant. That will really help take some of the burden off of our staff members for some of the day-to-day things that need to happen, but they can use their time elsewhere, such as ordering office supplies and things like that. We are currently working with the solid waste team on creating a long-term financial forecast and rate model for solid waste. As you're aware, this is the first couple years that they've actually had a capital improvement plan that they want to see put into place, and they have some long-term needs with funding that liability cost for expanding the landfill. We have to make sure that we have proper financial tools in place to be able to see that out long-term. So our key initiatives for 2023, in the month of July, we're going to be working in conjunction with the IT department to upgrade Munis, that's our ERP financial software, to our most current version. The current version that we're on is no longer going to be supported after October, so we have to make sure we have that upgrade in place and ready to go. Our other key initiative is going to be to provide training for staff for succession planning and improve process efficiencies. I have 2 employees in our department that could retire within 2 to 5 years, so we need to make sure that we have staff adequately prepared to either move up in the organization or take on some additional responsibilities. We do not anticipate any enhancement requests for finance for the FY23 budget. So our future issues and challenges and opportunities that come to finance is our current ERP system we have had since 1995. We do need to do the upgrade to bring it up so we're still supported. However, we need to make sure that the ERP system that we are using is the most efficient. So we're going to go out and just ask the question, what else is out there? Because we don't know. Our IT team will be doing the heavy lifting on that. We'll have a team in place to determine what steps we use going forward for our ERP system. As you are aware, our future challenges are long-term capital planning. There's a big ask on the table, for long-term educational capital. We have the facility study being done for the county to determine what are our capital needs for the county, which leads to one of the other challenges for us is adequate space for staff. My department is when it's fully staffed, I have no seats left. So I can't add any more staff without adequate spacing. Other challenges and opportunities are how do we maintain our current bond ratings to get those great low interest rates with the long-term capital planning strategic objectives that we have before us. Compliance management of grants. As you're aware, with the ARPA funding and the ERAP money and all the grant money that we're getting, there's a challenge there for us to maintain compliance issues for all those grants, which were very gracious. At the past meeting, you approved the ARPA funding for a grant accountant that will greatly help our staff maintain that. Succession planning for our staff, as I mentioned before, is a key initiative, and also managing the increase in volume of the day-to-day financial operations with the current staff that we have. We've seen a great increase in volume. The more capital projects we have, the more grant money we have coming in. That just adds to our day-to-day financial operations. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have about finance.
David, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Beverly. Just a couple questions. One would be, I see that you don't have currently, finance doesn't have currently performance measurement standards. Have you contemplated what those performance measurement standards might be, and if so, what are they? And my second question would be, in terms of ERP systems, what would you consider to be the elements of a superior ERP system that you're contemplating? Thank you.
So for performance measures, we have not looked into great details. So far as our department individually, how do we measure our success? But we have looked into debt ratios, cash ratios for liquidity to debt, things that we can actually put data, financial data on to actually say we are successful with managing these aspects, which is what our credit rating agencies look at as well. But we are working on that. We've looked into GFOA, what is best practices for performance measures for finance departments, and we will continue to look at that to actually get something in place. And your next question about how do we measure what a successful ERP system is, that is going to be a group effort that not only affects finance, that affects the budget team, procurement, HR, IT as well. So there's many options out there, but for us, we need a system that can support our business operations. We want to be the most efficient that we can be. Some of our processes that are currently in place that we want to move forward with, we are being held back with our current ERP system because it doesn't have the capability of doing the things we're asking it to do today.
What are some of those deficiencies that you feel like aren't being addressed with today's system?
So for our payroll, as you're aware, if you're an exempt employee, you don't have to submit a time card. So for that, there's not adequate tables set up in Munis to say, this is an employee that gets paid 80 straight hours. So we're manually having to import that into Munis now, and if they have sick time or vacation time or holiday time that we're using, we're having to manually import in an adjustment. This is the 21st century. You would think the payroll system would be able to handle that, but it has added, some additional staff time from that perspective. As well as from the HR side, there's some things that they're not able to do with tracking FMLA properly in our ERP system. They're tracking some of that outside of the ERP system. So we want a system where we can bring all of that together in one management model and not have bits and pieces coming in from the outside from a manual process.
Commissioner Williams, if I might, back in 1994, seems like a long time ago, the county engaged a consultant to help them source out an ERP system. And that ERP system that was selected out of that process was the Munis system that we use today. Sometime later on in the early 2000s, Munis merged with Tyler Technologies, so you might hear those two company names used synonymously with each other. The thought when the early ERP system was put in place, well, let me, if I might spend a minute just telling you what the conditions were. If you remember, and I can't even recall the name of the system, but it was the company Ross Perot had, was a standalone financial system, and we were on that system and on that software. It was proprietary. It had its own mainframe computer, etc., and it was no longer being supported, and it was getting ready to go away. That prompted the migration to a more inclusive, at the time, ERP system. The idea was that there would be this electronic platform would have a centralized financial hub, if you will, and that if you can picture a wagon wheel, there'd be an HR spoke and a public works spoke and a tax spoke and all of these different elements of county business being spokes, and they feed into the hub where it's a central repository of financial data for the county. And so that's how that operates today, and it operated for many years like that. That did not come with a payroll system. Payroll system was actually a homegrown system at the time, and had to be manually kept up by the person who wrote that code until that person was retired, and that system was no longer supported. Fortunately, Munis had started offering a payroll system by that time. It did require some upgrades to the system, but we gained some functionality there. We did not gain all the functionality that's available through the Munis Tyler Technologies platform, because the county did not upgrade all of those years to keep the platform up to date. And that's being very transparent about. So we find ourselves several generations of updates behind. With again, we're now facing a situation where we need to upgrade on the payroll system and the interconnectivity it has between all of those functions. And we've got to find a way to make that happen. So we have a number of challenges. And at the same time, we know there are more efficient systems out there, or certainly from the standpoint, if not from a process, certainly from an electronic platform perspective, more point and click rather than coded. It's a language in and of itself, and everybody that comes to work for us has to learn the computer language, and we need to move beyond that.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, it sounds like whether we stay with Munis or whether we move on to something else, we're looking for a very integrated solution.
Yes.
That's correct.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
and-
all options are kind of on the table.
They are on the
Right,
table.
all of them, yes.
There are a number of platforms that, for instance, we have, on the HR side of things, we maxed out the capacity of Munis relative to all of the human resource information that is on our current system. We use it much in the way other organizations use a human resource information system, an HRIS system, but it's not. It doesn't have all those elements. Therefore, we purchase a standalone performance management package and those types of things. So this is going to be an opportunity to integrate a number of our functions and create some efficiencies. I will tell you that the investment that the board made in 1994 in that integrated system created the efficiencies that really carried our organization for over a decade. And without having to increase the size of our staff and do some other things that would have been more costly to the organization. So, from a historical perspective, I guess you could call, it created a lot of efficiencies for our organization, and it's time to recreate that. It's time to reach out there and find that system that's going to do that same thing for us now.
Very good, thank you.
Any further questions?
Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have our procurement division, and we have Ms. Cheryl Wright. And Cheryl will come and share with you all that is happening in the procurement division.
Yes. Just trying to keep my notes here. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mark Watson, County Manager. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and share an overview of information about procurement and contract management and what services we're providing to the county on behalf of all of you. Let's see. Beverly, you did this really well. I'm trying to find mine. Where am I? That's budget. Ugh. Is this it? Nope. 1 second. Here we go. Is this it? Nope. Okay, somebody help me.
The first one there.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm going to put it in this mode.
All right, thank you. So thank you for bearing with me with that. So, with that said, first of all, procurement team, we understand the importance of the vision and the strategic objectives that you, the commissioners, have put before us. We do believe that we play a role in all 5 of your strategic objectives. However, We also recognize that we align mostly with organizational strengthening. They're all important, but we believe procurement and contract management aligns with organizational strengthening. When we look at the overview of the services provided by procurement services, it's really procurement and contract management services, and I have to remind myself of that. The core of the service we provide is centralized procurement services to all Union County departments, while ensuring contracts are awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And on occasion, we're also making sure, when applicable, award can be made on best value. And when we're doing this, we're doing all of this in compliance with all applicable policies, laws, guidelines, be it state, local, federal. That's what we're charged with. We're also responsible for providing contract management services, surplus program, vendor registration and outreach, training to our departments, as well as, when we can, to the business community. We also collaborate with the finance department to provide purchasing card services, and you'll hear the term P-card services. We assist with reviewing and uploading board agenda items into the new Legistar system, and we also are doing compliance monitoring where applicable for the federal UG guideline type projects. We are also responsible for compliance monitoring for various MBE, WBE, and historically underutilized business programs. MBE, Minority Business Enterprise, WBE, Women-Owned Business Enterprise. That's an overview. Currently, we have 6 FTE full-time positions available to us. We have 5 staff members on board right now. And thank you very much for approving the 6th position in the FY22 budget, and we're in the process of recruiting for that position right now. And we're also in the process, hopefully, of hiring a part-time person to assist us with various administrative needs in our area right now. How do we measure success? Well, we pulled these 3 categories, but there are a myriad of other categories by which we measure success in the procurement world. The first item that we listed is the processing time for requisitions to purchase orders. So basically, when departments are entering a request into the Munis Tyler technology system and they're asking to purchase various items, on the procurement side, we're basically saying, how long will it take us to process a purchase order so that the department can make that purchase? What we're saying is, as of the FY22 budget, our target is to process a purchase order, as long as we have everything that we need, within 4 days or less. This is also our first year of having the metrics here. So this is a tool that we're trying right now. Our next item by which we plan to measure success is we're looking at our workload, the overall workload in procurement. And so when we look at the workload, for purposes of this, we are including purchase orders, contracts and amendments, as well as solicitations, meaning invitation for bids, RFPs, Rfqs. So if you look at the trend in 2019, the volume we processed overall in those areas was 1,132 transactions using 3 full-time people, and that's a hefty lift, if you will. And then if you look at the trend as we move to FY21, the volume of those transactions did go up, and we were able to apply 4 FTEs to that workload. We're hopeful that in the FY22 budget, especially since we will have another person on board with us, we're hoping that the processing volume for each FTE would be around 290, which is still quite a bit, but you know, it's lower than what it's been in the past. So that's the trend there. When we look at the customer service aspect, and customer service is very important in our business, so we want to reach out to our departments and get their input this year and see how they view what the services are that procurement is providing. We'll also be getting some surveys when we do our trainings. We try to get some input from our departments on how that's working for them. We may think it's working fine, We need to know what they think and apply it accordingly. And so our target for success at this point is 75%, but again, this is our first year even applying the survey tool to our departments. When we talk about recent accomplishments from FY 2019 through FY 22, I sat with the team and we struggled a bit because we feel like we have so many accomplishments. But for purposes of this meeting, we wanted to share that in 2019, we implemented a procurement university agency-wide training, and basically what we provided during that session was very detailed information about various procurement policies and processes. At the time, the contract process, the PO process, P-card process, and at that time, we even shared about the federal government's federal regulations steps in those trainings. And we got some good feedback from that. What you'll see next is the volume of purchase orders, contracts and amendments, and invitation for bids, RFPs, and Rfqs that we processed in FY 2019. You can see the numbers there. I will share in each year what I tried to do is show the trend of how those numbers continue to go up, which is a good thing. Union County is growing. The services needed by our organization or by the community is growing. And so these numbers reflect how we're continue to stay with those trends in our purchases. You also see that we're responsible for surplus. And so this is some of the numbers, if you will, for the dollars we collected on surplus sales in FY 2019. You'll see here when I speak to the upcoming project advertisement tool, that is a great tool that we share with the business community to let them know about future projects that Union County plans to bid, not a current bid. And that is a helpful tool for a lot of businesses because if they're planning strategies on where they want to bid and who they want to bid with, they look at this list and they decide if they want to wait and be ready to bid on the projects. I'll share a little more with you about that later. When I mentioned the Connecting Business Outreach Vendor Fair, I'm proud to say that Union County led the charge. I want to say maybe it was 2016 to collaborate with the Union County Chamber and other municipalities here in Union County to do a vendor fair with the purpose of sharing information with all businesses about how we all respectively handle our purchasing. Some think we all do it exactly the same. We follow state laws, but within our policies there were various differences. So we found that to be very beneficial. We look forward to doing that again soon. I want to mention that we were involved, the procurement team, with helping bid out the Human Services building, and we did a special outreach event to support that. And we were also involved in the design build methods that are being used for CIP projects. And I believe the first one we did here was the Yadkin project. And so we were involved in the design build for that. In 2020, FY 2020, we also moved forward and collaborated with the facilities team and helped with the solicitation packages for the CM at risk methods that were used for the emergency services complex and the sheriff's office expansion. We collaborated again with facilities to do the first pre-qualification method that was used for the historic courthouse project. Again, you see the trend in numbers with POs, contracts, and bids continuing to go up. Surplus sales collection, that number went up that year. And on occasion, what we do try to do, even though we were not doing surveys in FY 2020, we did what we call procurement planning strategy meetings. So basically, we reach out to our departments and see if they want to schedule a one-on-one meeting to talk about what do you need from procurement? Are we servicing you well? If not, how can we help you? And then again, we're always offering training. Some we target the training to the department's needs, or we'll do agency trainings. We need to do a large agency training, so we're hopeful we can get that done real soon. FY 21 accomplishments, everybody knows that was a time of COVID. And so the procurement team, we were right there behind the scenes, shoring up all of our departments in the organization to make sure that we purchased COVID-related items and just regular business items, because regular business had to go on as well, but we were doing that at that time. You see the trend of POs and all of those going up. We offered training, and I'd like to say, the last bullet here, the Sustained Professional Purchasing Award, that is a very prestigious award here in North Carolina for purchasing professionals, and Union County has secured that award and been a recipient since 2017. I want to commend the procurement team and all departments for working with us to make sure we get that award. That is a measure of success as well. And then now, in FY22, we hosted the first virtual vendor outreach training here at Union County, and we had about 75 vendors participate in that, and that was pretty good, and we got good feedback on that. Again, the trend is going up with our purchase orders, and again, this is only from July 2021 through 22. We collaborated with legal to prepare and implement the enhanced contract review process. And we're also assisting again with reviewing and uploading the BOCC items in the new Legistar system. We're working with that surplus program all the time to explore opportunities for an enhancement, continuing to train internal and external businesses. I'd like to share this snapshot with you. This is a snapshot to let you know that we're always thinking of ways to do vendor outreach with the resources that we have. Whoops, let me go back. 1 second. So this is a snapshot of this upcoming project advertisement report that I spoke of earlier. This is posted on the procurement page. So businesses can go to this site, this link, and they'll see these projects listed here. And it'll say like winter or spring 2022. So it's not advertised yet, but it lets a company know we're looking at doing this. And when you're dealing with some of the larger projects, we get calls sometimes from companies who look at this list and ask us, are you still on track to bid this project out? And so it's a very good tool. It also helps us internally as departments work with the departments to proactively plan. On the right-hand side, connecting businesses, you can see this is that large vendor fair that I spoke of where we collaborate with the Union County Chamber, City of Monroe, schools, all of the municipalities in our area to come together to share information about how to do business with our respective areas. That's our little logo that we created together. So when we talk about some of the FY 2023 key initiatives, we'd like to stay on point and look at our processing time for purchase orders and requisitions to purchase orders. We're saying estimated 4 days. Hopefully we can get that down in FY 2023. We're going to still look at that procurement staff workload to make sure we're aligning our resources with volume. And then we need to stay on track with the customer satisfaction surveys with our departments and blend in agency-wide survey as well as training surveys. Some of the other key initiatives we're working on, or we want to work on in FY 23, and even now, we are updating the procurement policy, and we are hopeful that we'll be able to bring that before the board over the next few months, and that's going to support your organizational strengthening and enhancement of efficiencies. We'll continue to work on all solicitations, but there are quite a few large CIP projects that have federal funds, and we are ready and willing to help make sure that's done correctly. We want to look at volume spend opportunities so that we can see are there opportunities to bring about more efficiencies when we're spending funds for the organization. We're going to continue to work and upload and review the BOCC agenda items into Legistar, offer agency-wide training, outreach training, and hopefully be able to continue to invest in our staff so that they get the training they need and secure those industry certifications. Some of the future issues, challenges, opportunities, staff resources, again, just making sure we align those staff resources with the volume and the types of solicitations and contracts that we're charged with working on, dealing with our large CIP projects. We even have large IT projects and other projects in the organization. We want to make sure we have the skill set needed to do that. We are aware that the ARPA funding is here, And we also have those Federal Transit Association funds that are here. So we want to make sure that the procurement resources are aligned to help keep those projects on track as well. And then, as we all know, there are supply chain issues in the world. They have not gone away. And supply chain issues are impacting increased pricing. And so with that said, when we're asking to update the procurement policy, some of those requested updates align with supporting the whole supply chain situation that's going on in the world. Again, we'll continue to do compliance monitoring. Again, the opportunities, the additional staff, we do thank you very much for approving the staffing that you've approved for us. We'll be bringing that policy and procedure hopefully soon for your review and request approval, and look at that volume spend and continue to always look at reviewing and updating processes to be more efficient in what we do on behalf of the organization. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, Cheryl. Just a couple questions. The first one is, early in your presentation, you'd mentioned best value. Could you perhaps elaborate on what that means and perhaps compare it to more traditional bidding processes? And my second question is simply, you're on the front lines in terms of procurement. What are your impressions? What are you seeing in terms of the impact of inflation on Union County's ability to procure needed services? Thank you.
Thank you. The first one, for best value on a high level, best value is basically saying when the laws permit, we issue solicitations, usually a request for proposal, and you have evaluation criteria involved. Price is one factor of maybe 4 or 5 other criteria. So price is not the total determining factor. It's important, but the best value allows you to look at other criteria like a company's experience, maybe an implementation plan, and we weight them accordingly. Price is important, but it's not the total determining factor. So we'll take the highest score, if you will, and that company may be the company that wins the deal, right? Versus the traditional lowest responsive and responsible bidder. In that scenario, we've issued that invitation for bid is usually the term that's used, and that company has to meet the specs and everything, but at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line price. And that's the award. So that's when I say there's an opportunity sometimes for best value, as long as we're in alignment with policy, state law, federal law, that's the opportunity for best value. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess I'd be curious, what is the realm, what are the areas where best value applies, and what are those areas where you have to conventionally bid and go with best price?
All right, so best value is usually going to apply in the service realm.
Okay.
Service realm could be consulting services, a myriad of consulting services. And even for some IT type projects, as long as the IT project is a combination, meaning it could be software, training services, licenses, as long as it meets the definition by the state of North Carolina of being an IT service, now we can use an RFP process. And I'm trying to think of a staffing service type contract would fall into that category. Oh God, I do this all the time, I can't think of, but any service type deal, that could fall into your best value, where there's evaluation criteria that we actually list in our solicitation, the evaluation criteria. So that's wonderful because we're being transparent and we're letting companies know up front how we plan to evaluate them. Whereas in some spaces, they may not list all of that. Union County is very transparent with companies. Now, on the hard bid side, and with that terminology where you go low bid, that could be used definitely on construction projects. That's required to go low bid on hard bid construction, design bid build. So you're awarding to the lowest responsible bidder on price. You can also have a low bid if you're buying equipment. It's on price, lowest price on equipment. So those are two examples of when you could use one or the other.
Okay, so, I know generalizing is dangerous, but it sounds like where Union County is seeking equipment or seeking to have something designed and built, that falls into the more conventional bidding process. But where we're seeking services, there's an opportunity for best value.
Right.
Okay. And then the second question, I'm just, curious about your impressions in terms of what you're seeing out there in terms of inflation. I mean, it's something we're all thinking about. I mean, it's headline news. We got surprised late last year in the fourth quarter with inflation, and we just had figures from the Bureau, I think the Department of Commerce, in terms of the recent inflation figure, and the numbers just keep going up. So I'd just be curious to hear your perspective. You're on the front lines in terms of procurement. What are you seeing in terms of inflation and its impact on Union County's ability to procure needed equipment and services?
On a high level, I mean, it's impacting us, meaning when we're going out to bid, and you're talking about getting supplies in, if you're dealing with a construction project, you're going out for bid, where in some cases we could ask a company to hold their pricing for 120 days or 180 days. In some cases, it might behoove us to ask them to hold that pricing for 90 days or 60 days so that we can get a competitive price. But when we do that, we have to be able to move forward quickly with finalizing the deal. So if the bids come in on one day and it takes us 60 days, in all honesty, to move it through our process, it could have an impact on us, right? So that, I'll be honest, that's what we're seeing, as well as delivery. So you might be able to get the pricing, but getting them to nail down when furniture can be delivered, or you're paying a premium. When we're saying we want it by this date, some companies will come back and say, okay, if you can't move off of that date, you can't come back a little closer with your time, then we're going to build in this pricing. You're going to see it in the price. Some don't even tell us. Some just do it. But I will say, and that's part of the thought behind, I'll be honest, making a few updates, recommended updates to the policy to try to align it with what's going on in the world, as well as we need to align it with what's going on with the spending of the ARPA money, right? We got a certain window of time to spend that money. And then also trying to figure out recommendations on how to make everybody comfortable if we're asking to make certain adjustments. So yeah, we're seeing it.
All right, thank you very much.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have some concerns as well on this, the best value. Because when people call us from time to time and they say, I didn't get the bid for a project or something with the county, and I haven't had one of these lately, but I've had them in the past, we look at our local businesses a lot of times and say, we would love for all our things to be built and bid by local businessmen who pay taxes in the county and hire people from the county. That's just not always the way it works out. And when you're looking at something like this best value, the way I'm taking it is the low bidder may not get it, but you look at those people who bid, and you might say, well, the second highest bidder is just a more reputable person, or has more degrees, or has more certifications, but shouldn't that be done on the front end before the bidding process of getting those? I mean, we don't let just anybody bid on these projects. I mean, they have to have some qualifications, right?
Absolutely. So I'll see if I can do this quickly. So if you have, like, say, an RFP, and it was for a consulting service, right? In the RFP, when it goes out on the street, there'll be a section to say scope of work, and it'll describe in general what we're trying to buy. And then you'll have a section that may say submittal criteria or something like that. And it'll have like tab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it'll say, if you're interested, we need you to provide tab 1, a summary of your company's experience and number of years doing this type of work. Tab 2, give us a description of how you would provide this service if you were to get the deal. Tab 3, what would be your implementation and project plan, right? And then tab 4, give us some of your references. And then a tab 5, your price, if you will. Now, each one of those, when we go to the evaluation criteria section of the RFP, is saying in the evaluation criteria section, background and experience is equal to 15% or 20% a weight. Implementation plan is worth 10% weight. Price is worth, maybe, 20% weight. So the companies all get to see, if you give us this, we're going to weight it like this, but your information that you give us has to be a material. It has to be at the top of the game, because you don't know who your competitors are that are coming to the table.
But we don't do that with construction projects.
No, we have to, by state law, in the formal range, and the informal range,
Right.
we are required to do hard bid.
Price.
Low
And-
price. We cannot do an RFP or best
And the
value.
same for equipment.
Same for equipment. Yep.
So I guess I don't like the open stuff. For example, like a political opinion. Or, if one contractor maybe has a different type of political opinion than another, or let's say the relationship, if a contractor has a relationship previously with the county versus somebody who doesn't, or that, is it a local versus an outside person? If I get a call in the future from a vendor who got turned down and they had the low bid, again, I find that would be a little bit harder to work through than just the low price. I'm sorry, you were outbid. That's pretty easy explanation. And I've had people who have been outbid, but they felt they were more qualified to do the work, and may have been more qualified to do the work, but I just don't know that I like that wiggle room.
Cheryl, it may be helpful, and correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly here, but you mentioned state statute.
Yes.
And the state has limits that it sets on purchase of materials, so anything over a certain amount has to be bid out.
Right.
And that's the same across the state for everybody. Union County, actually, I think the board has set a lower threshold for the amount of material that must be bid out. Am I
Right.
correct?
You're right.
So our thresholds are actually, it's for a lower amount, so inversely, our thresholds are higher. They require the vendor to do more in order to place that bid. And on the service side, state statute does not require services to be bid out up to a certain level.
Right, it does not, unless we move into your combination of IT world.
Right.
And part of the thing we're being faced with now by using the combination of the funding, this ARPA funding and FTA funding, they do require that we bid out services. So-
But in that regard too, Union County Board of County Commissioners has adopted policy that requires us to go out and solicit proposals for services at a lower threshold for services
Right.
that otherwise would not require that process. Is
You're
that
right.
correct?
Right, we're going above and
Yeah, yeah.
beyond. We're going above and beyond.
That's the point I'm trying to make here, is that the Board of County Commissioners by policy has set these thresholds that are lower than state statute and require more of the vendors and the staff to go through the process. So the vetting is quite a bit more.
Which
To your
makes my point
to your
a little
point
more.
on the services, I believe the departments that are bidding out or taking those solicitations for services have to determine what fits their need the best, and that's when that ambiguity sometimes comes into the decision making.
And when you talked about consultants, for example, that, the concern is more of the consultants, because we as your board rely on the information that the consultants give us. And let's say that the consultant that really has worked well with you in the past and has communicated with you real well and got kind of the result that you were looking for anyways, is the second high bidder or runner-up, and you go to her and say, well, you know, this guy really works well with us, let's give it to them instead of the low bidder. Again, back to the consultant part of it, if we have to rely on the information, are we getting information that's more friendly to what staff is asking for, or is it information that we're looking for independent and at the low bid of the more qualified people that we're having give bids in the first place?
I got you. So there's one thing that I was making notes as Cheryl was giving her presentation, and what you're talking about kind of ties into the contracting process too. And over the last 36 months, we have revamped the contracting process, the oversight of the contracting process. For years, that process was initiated out of and overseen by the legal staff. Now that process has been documented. It's been put out there so that Cheryl and her staff initiate the contracting process with the departments, and it goes through a workflow that eventually makes its way to the legal staff for review, and they do get reviewed, and at that point in time, legal staff vets that recommendation out, the contract out, and if there are any of those ambiguities that, such as you just talked about, that come to the attention of our legal staff, that's when that gets vetted out in the process.
And so again, we're talking about very little amounts of money on, I'm sure, on a lot of these things, but less than 50,000, probably on consultant fees, maybe. Is that something that's going to be brought to the board, especially if that person's a second high bidder? And is that something that's going to be brought to us in open session, or is that something that you have authority just to sign off on?
Anything under $50,000 is under the manager's authority.
Okay. So again, I get a call from a consultant that says, hey, I got the low bid, I qualified, I was well qualified, but I got the low bid and I didn't get the contract. Can you explain to me why? And I've never heard of it before, never heard anything about it. It's going to be hard for me to explain to that person what's going on. Now, if y'all had come to us and said, hey, listen, this is below 50,000, this is under the manager's discretion. However, this was the second high bid, this was not the low bid, this was the second bid. They got the job because we felt their uniforms were nicer, or they had better presentation methods, or whatever. Again, if we had to hear that, that would be helpful to me.
Yeah.
Again, I know this, and in the interest of Valentine's Day, I'll quit asking questions, but I have a concern there.
Okay.
And I'm registering it with you, and
Got you.
I think that should be a
It's,
concern.
I would tell you that I know that we have vendors that from time to time want more detail about the decision-making process in when they submit proposals. Why did this person get selected over this person? Those type questions come, I wouldn't say they come frequently, but they do come.
They come.
And we answer those to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
You're not going to make 100% of the people happy all the time in your decision-making, I can tell you that. But I will tell you that staff does a good job in trying to answer all of those questions and resolve all those issues before they rise to the level of needing to be answered by a commissioner individually.
Yeah.
So,
We do put them in the report. All of that's in your quarterly report about bids.
Commissioner Rushing, I have a question. Are you talking about a hypothetical or something that's actually happened?
No, I mean, I know in the past, I think with the DHHS building, we had a gentleman that was concerned about being, the bid, or he was a local business or something. And again, these are things that have happened in the past. Not frequently, I don't think, usually we take the low bid, right? On
Excuse
most things, we take the low bid.
Most things we take the
Have we
low
taken
bid.
have we not taken the low bid? And sometimes when we don't take the low bid, it's because the staff has come to us and said, hey, this is a problem. We found something that they couldn't meet the requirements or whatever. And then we put it out for bid, or we might go to the second bidder maybe then. But this, again, with consultants, I know Commissioner Helms and I over the years have been really thorough on looking at consultants and concerned with what information we get from consultants, whether it be in public works or anything, that we're getting good information that the five of us have to hear to make good decisions on. And I just don't want that to be I'd hate to go to the same consultant over and over again because they tend to give the answer that's.
So one thing about that, just as a point of interest, in areas where you have engineering consultants, consulting firms, Public Works will go and they will solicit requests for qualifications. And engineering firms that meet the criteria, have the skills, expertise that are required in the RFQ document, are put on a list, on a calling list, if you will. So if there are 5 engineering firms with certain qualifications to do certain kinds of work, they're on the list. Everybody understands, the first job that comes through, engineer 1's going to get, the second one, engineers 2 is going to get, or whatever. And perhaps we've run into situations where you call engineer 1, they don't have the capacity or the time to take on that job. So you go to engineer number 2, engineer number 3, but all of those have been pre-vetted for qualifications. It's just a matter of who's available to do the work first and who's next on the list. That scenario happens quite frequently throughout the organization, where we have, it may be, whether it's engineers, it may be temporary staffing agencies, it may be nursing, contract nursing agencies, and the list just goes on, where we have pre-vetted those people and they just come up the next one on the line.
But they're not bidding.
They're not bidding on a specific job,
Right.
no.
It's acceptable process. I assure you, the processes that are being used by Union County, the low bid process, RFP, these are acceptable processes with laws.
And I understand the
Stay.
low bid process is acceptable. I got that. It's that the best value
Yeah.
is subjective.
It's really pretty, I'll be honest, sir, Union County's process is very tight. We're
Yeah.
very transparent. We even offer debriefings to companies that are not pleased with the result. And when we do that, most of them walk away and understand. And we share the scores. We have independent scorings on the evaluation team.
As an elected official representing the people that hears this information that the consultant would bring to us, I just want to know that exactly what goes into the best value.
Okay.
I think low price is the best value for the people. And if they weren't qualified to do the job, we probably shouldn't have them bid in the first place.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify whether it was, you're talking about a procedure rather than a single case, because
Yeah, no single, other than I have been contacted by vendors before that were upset that they didn't get the thing. Usually they were not the low bid, but they might say, but I work here in the county all the time. Okay, that's fine, but you have to be the low bid. I'm sorry that you didn't get it. I wish you would have, but you didn't. And now with this best value thing coming into play, I don't know that I can tell people what happened there. And I don't have, maybe I don't even have a vote on it.
Cheryl, thank you very much. First
Thank you.
time I've heard you present. I have a couple of simple questions.
Yes, sir.
Surplus sales,
Mm-hmm.
is that done mostly through Gov Deals?
Yes, that's the electronic portal that we use right now, sir.
Just as a matter for all the old retired junk masters in Union County, when we have Gov Deals, could you get with communications and maybe let the citizens see that there's maybe some stuff to go by and look at on Patton Avenue?
Sure, we can work with communications and see how to get that link in the advertisement that goes out to the public. Yes,
And
sir.
I've never bought anything from Union County, but I bought on Gov Deals, and it's a fairly complicated thing to get approved to bid on Gov
Okay.
Deals. And then the other question that I'm learning a lot too, being on state contract, that makes, and that's mostly equipment, but that makes your job a lot easier, doesn't it? If the equipment or supply has been vetted by the state, does that make it easier? I know we're looking at something for Public Works, and it's not on state contract, so it's got to go another process. And it seems like to me if the state would get everything that counties use on state contract, it would sure cut down on, it would increase transparency and make it easier to know you were getting the most value for a dollar.
It is helpful when we can use the state contract, if that's, what the needs are for the department and organization. It is a helpful tool.
Well, do you ever find that you can buy stuff cheaper, not on state contract than on state contract?
On occasion, but I'll be honest, it's timing. Timing. Right? So especially in a market like we have today. In the market we have today, it depends. If you can find what that is on that state contract versus going to the market to bid it out and possibly losing out when the bid is awarded, then,
I understand.
2 or 3 years ago, it's different. We're in a different time now. So on some larger pieces of equipment, for example, if we truly can find it on the state contract, no federal money involved, and it's something the organization really needs right now, we might want to move on it. Because if we wait too long, then it'll be gone.
Very impressed with your presentation.
Thank you,
Any other
sir.
questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Commissioners, next we have Parks and Recreation, a presentation by Parks and Recreation, and Mr. Jim Chaffin is the Parks and Recreation Director. And welcome, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Okay, first and foremost, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mark, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. This is the first time that I've actually spoke to this group, I think in about 3 or 4 years. So I do appreciate your time today. I was thinking about a segue into this presentation without just jumping to that first slide, so I wanted to give you a really brief history on where we're at with Parks and Rec so that you guys are aware. Back in 2015, we did a comprehensive master plan for Union County parks. That's our 3 parks that we own and operate, Cane Creek, Jesse Helms, and Fred Kirby. Out of that particular master plan, what we came out of it with is that we, as Union County, are going to deal with regional park facilities only. Regional park facilities by NRPA standards are 250 acres or greater. So obviously Cane Creek fits into that. Jesse Helms is going to fit into that as well. Fred Kirby is kind of a different animal for us as far as the acreage goes. But what we do is we actually work in collaboration with all the other municipalities around that have either a Parks and Recreation Department or a Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. That could be in the form of support of resources, taking our movie equipment over to someone else's municipality rather than them have to purchase said equipment. It could also be just general discussion on activities, events, programming, whatever that looks like. So I wanted to just do that very quickly as we move through this. The vision statement, strategic objectives, I was thinking that we had actually taken these off, but we actually fit into both these, the public safety aspect and the sustainability aspect. Probably the sustainability is more pertinent to what we do in our department as far as the environment that promotes affordability of services. We're not looking to just crash somebody's budget when you come to Cane Creek Park or when you go use Jesse Helms or Fred Kirby for athletic facilities. Overview of programs and services, we do have three. The first one you see is our Parks and Recreation Administration. And what that is, when it talks about Parks and Recreation Administration, that's myself, our Park Operations Manager, and our Office Manager. So, and then also our Programming and Events, which we'll get into that a little bit more as the presentation proceeds. Cane Creek Park, we do have the Cane Creek Park Day Use Area, and we have the Cane Creek Park Campground. The other parks consist of Fred Kirby and Jesse Helms. Our current investments, we currently have 21 full-time employees, including myself. The one number that I want to point out here is our part-time, the 8.25 FTEs, that's our seasonal staff, which equates to about 37 folks. That could be lifeguards, that could be a campground manager, that could be security, that could be a seasonal ranger, that could be an office attendant. The reason I want to point that out is without those positions, Cane Creek Park does not run. There's no way that full-time staff can do it by themselves. So the support of the part-time / seasonal staff is greatly appreciated on our half. Another number that I want to point out to you on this is the revenues, the $649,000. So by NRPA standards, take away any Parks and Recreation organizations that run off an enterprise fund, which we don't. We're not an enterprise fund. The national number, you look in the neighborhood of 30 to 35% revenues brought back. Our revenues are hitting closer to 47, 48% right now. And you'll see this as we move through the presentation as well. Our revenues have really taken off, exclude 21, but from 19, 20 to where we're at, I'm sorry, yeah, exclude 20. 19, 21, and now 22, we're really going up, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So our measuring of success, it's all about people, the numbers of people that we have at our facilities, and their customer satisfaction. So you can look at the campground, very simple. How many people stay with us? How many people come and stay with us in our family camping area? How many people stay in the cabins? How many people use the group area? When we go over to the day use area, we're talking about people that are just coming in for the day. Maybe they're coming in to fish, boat, hike, whatever that looks like that one right there. And then also for folks that rent our shelters as well. The Jesse Helms and Fred Kirby is a little bit more difficult for us to watch because they are a non-fee based park, meaning that you can pretty much come and go when you want to, except when we close the gates. So it's hard to figure out what those numbers are because we have all these different athletic sports that are played. You might have 5 members on a team. You might have 15 members on a team. You might have 20 members on a team. So it's a little bit more difficult. So what we're basing this off of is that we require them to provide us with a roster of their kids that are on that team that are going to be using that facility, and then we get to a pretty good guesstimated number as far as usage at those 2 facilities. The last one, our Parks and Recreation Services. Customer service satisfaction rate, that'll come off of our outdoor recreation department programs and events that when he does a survey, he gets feedback from our residents or our users. And then we're actually working currently on coming up with a customer service survey that we can put online or they can actually fill it out when they leave the park using a QR code if they would like. So that's going to help that number as we move forward. Recent accomplishments. Several years back, I spoke with the management team about converting our annual campsites at the park into what we consider regular sites. That was, in my opinion, as a director plus our park operations guy, it was revenue based. And you can see since we made that transition, we've had an annual revenue increase of $65,000. Basically, what you're looking at there is about 33 extra sites that are rentable on a day-to-day basis versus an annual basis for a year. Progression pay plan for staff, that kind of falls into the county's investment in staff and organizational strengthening. What we've done is we're allowing our ranger staff and our maintenance staff, it's on a 4-tier system. They have to go get certain certifications, go to certain trainings. Once they complete all 4 tiers, they can move up actually to another level of their particular job. Trail development improvements at Cane Creek Park and Jesse Helms Park. Our staff, except for our new guys that are on staff, they've all been to a trail school that's held by North Carolina State University. So they all have the same ideas now. It used to be, I want to do it this way, I want to do it this way, he wants to do it this way. Well, now they've all been to the same school, they've been taught the same way, so it's actually working out very well. The trails at Jesse Helms Park, almost 3 miles. That was actually a self-help project. Our staff did that entire trail system that's there. During this off-season, as we call it, that's been one of our major players, is going out and working on the trails, getting those back up to speed for us. Expansion of our outdoor recreation department. 4 years ago, we had 1 person. And since then, you guys have been gracious enough to support getting 2 day camp counselors, 2 paid internship positions, and 2 seasonal positions that help him as well. This year, actually, she just started today. We have another full-timer in our outdoor recreation department. So we are anticipating definitely growing what we're able to provide the residents of Union County and obviously others outside the county as well. We already talked about the increased collaborations and partnerships with the other municipalities. That's where that outdoor recreation department is going to come into play. You're also talking about when Parks and Rec goes to an event, a lot of times you'll see the library, a lot of times you'll see Soil and Water, a lot of times you'll see 4-H or any of Andrew's other extension agents. So there's a lot of collaboration going on, not only inside Union County government departments, but getting outside as well to all the municipalities. Obviously, a big accomplishment was the opening of the Special Events Center. As we move forward, that's something that our outdoor rec department and the 4-H department there at the Ag Center are working diligently to start getting ideas together and getting things, Commissioner Williams, to your question a month or so ago, to get that calendar going. We definitely have full anticipation of getting that moving. We've already talked about the substantial increase in revenue for our department over the last several years. I think that really it just has a lot to do with people were tired of staying inside, so they wanted to go to the park systems. They wanted to go to the parks. We just recently went into a partnership with the Union County Fire Marshal to develop a dry hydrant service at Cane Creek Park. We are moving through the process with Union County Public Works right now. It's not, I guess it's not in operation yet, but it's moving through the cycle. And then we do have a completion of a park-specific master plan for Jesse Helms Park. Just as a reminder, Jesse Helms is really 2 parks in one. We've got an athletic complex, which is a 6-field soccer complex, concession stand, walking trail, the playground, a shelter. So we are hoping to move forward with development on the passive area, which is right next door to the Special Event Center. And sneak peek, this master plan will hopefully be presented to you guys within the next 2 months is what we're anticipating. These are just a couple of visuals for you guys. But what we're looking at here is providing an open green space, nature-based, natural environment that folks can come and utilize. So again, you'll get more information on the Jesse Helms Park Master Plan in the next couple of months. Key initiatives, obviously development of the Jesse Helms Park passive area, which will that's going to help with the master plan. We've already talked about collaborative efforts for our Special Events Center, whether that's through Union County departments or outside organizations that want to come in and work with us as well. Continue the growth of our outdoor recreation department and programming efforts. As I mentioned, we just started the new full-timer today, so I fully anticipate those numbers going up now as far as events go. Development and maintenance of trails, whether that's at Cane Creek or Jesse Helms. Solicit and advertise seasonal positions to obtain a full seasonal staff for this upcoming season. Last year was hard. we did not have a full seasonal staff. And if you'll recall what I said the very first of the presentation, we don't run without our seasonal staff. So some of our local schools have allowed our staff to get in and actually do some recruiting, which has helped. If we can't get into their school system, they're actually doing the promotion for us. We had a job fair this past weekend. It's my understanding we had a little over 40 folks show up for that. So hopefully we will be able to get a full staff, but that is definitely at the top of our list this year. Last one is development and construction of buildings in our park system. And those buildings would include a new camp store at Cane Creek and a new shared maintenance facility at Jesse Helms Park. Lastly, future issues, challenges, opportunities. So Cane Creek Park is obviously the oldest park that we have right now, so we're starting to get concerned about aging infrastructure. That's going to include your water, your sewer, your paving, concrete, anything of that nature. Providing more ADA accessible opportunities at our facilities. While a lot of our stuff was grandfathered in, if we go and replace a playground structure at any of the facilities, we have to have an ADA component to that structure, but we also have to have accessibility to the structure, which we may not currently have because it was grandfathered in. Increased staffing needs at Jesse Helms Park. Once we get this passive area open, I know there's been a lot of talk about possibly having another campground up at Jesse Helms. We're going to have to add additional staff because the current staffing that we have that's really dedicated to Cane Creek, they don't have the time and or energy to head that way as well. We can't split them up, so that'll be a big one coming up. Carolina Thread Trail development, it's out there. Everybody knows what it is, and for us, it's basically trying to help the municipalities with the connector pieces that are in unincorporated areas is basically what we're looking at. But the Carolina Thread Trail can also provide that connectivity between park systems within the county. And lastly is going to be office and storage needs for Cane Creek Park. As we continue to grow as far as staffing goes, we're running out of office space very quickly. And then our storage needs with this outdoor rec department growing, somewhere in our capital improvement plan, there's actually an outdoor recreation storage facility that's there as well that would be housed down at Cane Creek. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Jim, I have a couple of questions, and one of them kind of backed. We heard about the $600,000 camp store maybe 6 months ago. And this past week I was explained that that's just not the store, that's parking lot and septic expansion. And I know it would make it easier for me, more palatable, and I'm sure probably everybody else, if when that $600,000 store comes to us, and it probably is down in the papers of what all it's going to. And I did express to Assistant Manager Nyland that I know to get more campsites at Cane Creek Park, we've got to have a long-term solution. Just because it's red dirt down there doesn't mean it will perk. But I would be very open to that because camping has become the new pastime for people since COVID happened.
I would agree. To answer your question, everything that we've kind of talked about with the new camp store, it will be a quote-unquote turnkey project, so that when it's turned over to us, everything's done, and to include a parking lot, obviously to include the new sewer system, to include the new septic. To your second point about expansion of that campground at Cane Creek Park, currently where we're at with sewer capacity right now, and this is something that our guys in the ground floor with environmental health can help with as well, but we're at capacity. We are at capacity. When we did the renovation on the Lakeside Lodge, added 2 restrooms and 3 sinks, we had to have a dedicated septic tank just for that particular facility because they didn't want it dumping into our current system. I'm not by any means opposed to expanding that campground because it would help us. The last thing we hate telling people, I'm sorry, we're full. We don't have a site for you this weekend. So yes, if we can somehow figure out that long-term plan on how we can expand those campsites, and honestly, I think it could start with just having standard water and electric sites. We don't necessarily have to have full hookup sites to start with, but as part of that progression plan, maybe, that might be a step one.
Right. And I would start looking at alternatives to this sewer issue, possibly a small package
Sure.
facility or
Sure.
something. And not to put you or Commissioner Simpson on the spot, I should have talked to you about it, but I know we've got a big event coming up next month. And I was going to give a few minutes, if you will take it, Jerry, to talk about your livestock show. I think that's going to be eye-opening to people not in the agriculture field. I'll yield to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You did put me on the spot. Yeah, it's just, that's an area that there's a tremendous amount of activity in, a tremendous amount of interest in, and not necessarily particularly in Union County, but throughout the region and across the nation. For instance, in January, there was a single species swine event, hog event at Perry, Georgia. They had about 3,000 plus entries at that show. So it's something there's a lot of interest in. We're having a show, the first, we're calling it the inaugural Sweet Union. It's going to be held the 26th and 27th of March. We'll show hogs and cattle on Saturday, sheep and goats on Sunday. And I had entries, I know, just in the last evening, I had sheep entries from Concord. I have cattle entries from Alamance County. So the word's out there, and we hope that we're going to have a lot of kids in here, a lot of families. We're going to do it upright. We're going to have some open to the public opportunity for bluegrass music, food trucks, those kind of things for folks to come and see what the kids are doing and maybe encourage their kids to participate in that as well, something hands-on, something they can work with and not just push buttons on. So we look forward to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Jim, I know by being at the Ag Center, you've sort of got thrown into 4-H. There's probably some opportunities for 4-H clubs to maybe do some fundraising during this event. So if you'll run that by.
Crystal and my outdoor recreation coordinator have a very, very good working relationship, and they've been doing different events and programs for probably the last 4 years at this point. So yes, that's definitely something.
Well, I
we can
know
look at.
about 2 weeks ago, Mark said, this thing's going to be big. And with Jerry's years of service and contacts, if half the people he knows comes, it's going to be unbelievable. So, and I'm looking forward to bringing my grandchildren to it. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for setting me up for failure. I appreciate it. I do have not a similar question, but a question for Jim. Jim, with regard to the camp store, do you have, is the decision to move in that direction, is that data-driven? In other words, do you have demand information to develop a need for that, I guess is my question.
Yes.
Not saying you don't have a need, but I'm saying
No,
what do you
sir,
use?
I
what
understand,
criteria you
I
use to
understand,
drive?
I understand. We feel like, I guess you could say, the post-COVID, after we shut the campground down, our numbers have just progressively increased, both revenue-wise and citizen/resident-wise as well. What we're seeing is the need, when our campground is full, we like to say we've got you captured. So we want to keep you in that campground. One of the things that people leave the campground for the most is to go get those small incidentals they forgot. So with expanding this camp store and the square footage, that obviously increases our ability to provide more concession and resale items. Now, to your point, we, staff, feels like the increase in revenue is the data needed to support that particular project and the age of that structure that's over there currently. Several years back, when I'm going to say in the neighborhood of 5 years ago, maybe 6, we actually had some folks come in and we were going to talk to them about renovating At that time, once they started looking at everything, it was basically almost going to be as cheap to build a new camp store as opposed to renovating the existing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, I've stayed down there, and then the big problem's gonna be the hours. If you build a store, you're gonna have to keep it open more hours.
So, Mr. Watson was kind enough to, and Mr. Nyland, was kind enough to sign off on a reclassification request for one of my seasonal positions, probably just last week. And basically what we have is camp store manager. So this particular person will be working, I'm not gonna say they're gonna work 7 days a week by any means, but in cooperation with our full-time staff and that campground manager, it will be open 7 days a week.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Members of the board, we have with us this afternoon Mrs. Janet Payne, who's the Assistant Director of Human Services. And Janet is going to come and give you an overview on Human Services. But within Human Services, there are a number of divisions. Janet will introduce those division directors who will give you more specific information regarding their operations at Human Services.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, and happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for giving us the time to be here today. And I am Janet Payne, Assistant Director of the Consolidated Human Services Agency. And on behalf of the agency and our Executive Director, Michelle Lancaster, who is not able to be here today, I wanted to kick off our program, as the manager indicated, with a brief introduction to orient you to who our team is. The Human Services Agency is complex. We have 6 divisions with over 520 positions that provide a broad range of functions to Union County residents. We have internal function in Business Administration Division, which is focused on providing foundational operational support and customer service components across all of Human Services, and then 5 external customer-facing divisions: Transportation, Veteran Services, Public Health, Social Services, and Community Support and Outreach. You will hear briefly from each of those in just a few minutes. Our team members from each of these 6 divisions provide support services to a diverse population for the betterment of our residents, literally from the time before they were born until they pass away in many instances. The essential services we provide are designed to protect and enhance the health and well-being of Union County residents, especially those who are most vulnerable. While the individual services that we provide are important, there is benefit not only to our staff, but also to the people that we serve from our work and being a consolidated human services agency. From an internal perspective, Consolidation has unified a strategic mindset and goals, enabled a more consistent personnel system, enhanced our revenue collections and fiscal management processes, improved operational efficiencies, enabled collaborative training and business process management opportunities, provided more effective technology support, and an ability to be stronger and provide each other support across programs. More importantly, from an external customer-facing perspective, many people who want to come and need our services come to us for one specific service. But ultimately, they can often benefit from multiple programs or services that we have. Fostering a one-team environment and ensuring our teammates are empowered and educated about our services is not easy, but it is definitely important as we work with the individuals, families, and our communities. Agency leaders, who you will hear from, are committed to developing a culture and mentality that allows our team members across all of our divisions to provide excellent services for their specific function and communicate and work in a collaborative manner so that we can be cross-functional and provide more holistic wraparound services. Every day, we work to grow as a team. Ultimately, we want to educate our residents and ensure that they have access to the services and care that they need, with a long-term goal of helping residents break the cycle of poverty and achieve and maintain adequate health, social and economic well-being, and dignity, ultimately resulting in higher quality of life for these individuals, their families, and our community. Now, you're going to hear from each of the leaders of our divisions. Jackie Morgan from Business Administration is going to kick us off. But before we do that, because Human Services has a heart for service, we all wanted to give you a little sweet treat, hopefully a little pick-me-up, because it's a long afternoon, to say thank you, and we appreciate you all and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members and County Manager Watson. I'm Jackie Morgan. I'm the Division Director for Human Services Business Operations. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what Business Operations has been doing in the past and what we hope to do in FY23. The vision statement and strategic objectives, we touch on several of these in operations, but in choosing just one, organizational strengthening is where we most fit. Business operations exists just for that, to exist and support all the departments across human services. We provide the necessary infrastructure to assure that our clients and patients connect to needed services through our switchboard, centralized scheduling, patient registration, language services, and navigation. Those are just a few of the things that we do in operations that are outward-facing, that touch clients. Overview of our programs and services. It looks like we're limited up there, but we're really not. Business operations consists of 70 full-time equivalents covering 4 departments and 4 programs. Finance, training, business processes, customer service, public health accreditation, public health emergency preparedness, and program integrity all fall within business operations. We exist as a foundation for all human service client interactions to support and sustain human service employees and the workflows that they perform each day. Current investments, we have the smallest budget, I believe, next to veterans within human services, and it's because we are an admin. We don't technically produce revenue. We work as an established infrastructure of managers and teams focused on the back of the house and front of the house support. Some staff that actually are managed in operations org chart are paid for by other divisional budgets, such as public health and DSS. This practice that we do is meant to capitalize on the fiscal advantages that we can take advantage of as programmatic reimbursement within DSS, as well as agreement addendums that are actually signed by the health director and go into those budgets. There are 2 revenue areas within operations, one I just mentioned, which is emergency preparedness. It is a public health function that's in my org chart, but that agreement addendum money goes through Dennis and through public health, and program integrity does collect client debt. It's part of DSS, but a portion of that debt that we collect will come back to the state as well as back to Union County. Measuring success, so like Beverly alluded to earlier with her department, we're an essential service, so we don't technically have formal performance measures assigned to us as a division, but we measure ourselves by the overall success of human services. The vision of human service consolidation was to unify service delivery, create efficiencies, and leverage dollars for the greater good. We strive to make this happen each day, which ties back to your objective of organizational strengthening. COVID demonstrated this success for us. Business operations was able to transform our mission so that public health and our residents could receive vaccinations at our mass clinics. Operations manned the COVID hotline, and we scheduled 53,630 vaccine appointments for the county residents, answered more than 10,000 phone calls through the hotline, and provided IT support to transition 84% of the human service workforce into a remote environment. Our customer service staff checked in and screened more than 60,000 clients through the lobby in FY22. Operations teams assisted with entering patient vaccine data. And throughout the COVID response, our operations were expected to continue to sustain their support functions such as our counting, budget, cash handling, switchboard, language services, mail processing, training, onboarding of new staff, contract processing, and continuing to be that infrastructure needed to support COVID response for the other divisions. Recent accomplishments: 2019, we did work as an agency to develop and draft a strategic plan with several goals, all of which were focused on prevention and outcomes. Some of those goals included our Human Service Academy, meeting people where they are, meaning going out to the community. I'm going to speak a little more about the Human Service Academy later. A minimum housing ordinance goal with a goal of looking at rental properties to assure rental properties are meeting minimum standards for safe, healthy housing for tenants, mental health service access, and defining human service roles and addressing impacts of substance abuse and what our role is in doing so. In 2019, also, public health did receive the state accreditation with honors, which was wonderful to see. 2020, COVID logistics support. We transitioned that workforce to being remote, all the while assuring that hardware was available, software support and security for those new remote processes was in place, and that staff were aware how to conduct business without creating cyber issues. We set up and staffed the COVID hotline for questions and vaccine scheduling, did data entry and logistics at the COVID clinics, including the mass clinics at the Ag Center, and we were greeting and screening clients that were coming to the lobby and through the navigation outside the building. 2021, we saw the strategic plan goal of meeting people where they are actually come to fruition. Public Health Preparedness Coordinator and the Public Health Leadership worked tirelessly together to procure a mobile trailer for vaccinations and COVID testing within the county. State contracted vendors have been working with the Preparedness Coordinator out in the community at the two sites, one in Marshville and one in Indian Trail, where we were doing having COVID tests done as well as vaccines offered. Interpreting hours, this is one that I think a lot of people don't realize is there, but it's a tremendous part of what we do. Our Language Services Division provided 8,979 interpreting hours in 2021, saving the county $856,596.60, which is the cost of what those services would have been had we used our contracted vendor. 2022, our program Integrity developed standard operating procedures for investigations and collections, focusing on the collection of our outstanding debt and education of clients to prevent future program violations within program integrity. We have procured an asset inventory system for emergency preparedness equipment that resides in public health and in human services. It's a bar cloud system solution to track and manage human service-owned assets, such as our rolling stock, digital signs, fixed assets, generators, port account machines for fit testing, and disposable commodities. We do share some of these things with community partners and within the county as well, and we want to make sure that we're tracking those. Key initiatives in FY23, the Human Service Academy. That's something that was one of our strategic planning goals, and the idea is to create an internal educational opportunities for our workforce to gain a universal human service knowledge. It's what Janet mentioned as one team, so that we're a lot of divisions, but we need to be outward facing. It shouldn't be obvious which one we work for. We should be able to assist our clients as needed. Assuring that clients have the knowledge about and direct access to all human service programs that will meet their needs and expedite the clients returning to a healthy, stable quality of life. The expansion of the human service program knowledge should also help impact retention rates within our staff, because by making them internally marketable beyond their current position, we hope to retain them within the organization. And it would help them to connect the dots for our clients. If they work in one program but they're knowledgeable about the others, we hope that we can help them connect with other services. The second key initiative is contract management based on performance. We're a large division or large agency, and we have a lot of contracts across the different divisions. But once the RFP process happens and a vendor is selected, we want to make sure that we, as an agency, are paying attention to the service that we're actually receiving. So what we've done is designed an internal survey to reach out to the subject matter experts that were part of our RFP process on the front end and ask, how's it going? Get some feedback from them throughout the life of the contract, so that when we enter into the RFP process later on, that we have some notes and some feedback, because there's a possibility that the people that were part of the RFP committee or those subject matter experts on the front end are no longer with the organization. So we don't want to lose that knowledge when we're looking at who we're considering. Key Initiative 3 is implementing a proactive collection program within program integrity. We want to strengthen the collection of our outstanding debt that is owed to Union County, while continuing to educate the clients on how to avoid future intentional program violations or inadvertent household errors that may cause them to be in debt, returning them to stability. The current program waivers are preventing us from collecting debt presently. We have 1,000 cases, had 1,000 cases sitting out there prior to COVID, and during COVID have accumulated an additional 300. So that's 1,300 cases totaling more than $2.8 million that are sitting out there in potential collection. We currently only have one person engaged in collection. She was hired in 19, so that is a program that we haven't really focused on from an aggressive perspective, and we want to be more proactive in that space. So I am asking for a position in FY23 for collections. Finally, QA counsel is something that we would like to start. We do a lot about, focus a lot on data-driven decisions. So what we've done is we've used our business process team to look at processes, work with the division directors, look at audits and things of that nature, and create a quarterly review with dashboards that our division directors are engaged in so they know what's coming. And we can all look at performance metrics that are both county implemented as well as state and audit driven, and assist in strengthening those processes. And where necessary, we want to re-engineer workflows, schedules, and resources to improve our outcomes, creating opportunities to make these data-driven decisions available and data available to the division directors on an as-needed basis in real time and on demand. Future issues, challenges, and opportunities. A big one is adopting to post-COVID workflows. Post-COVID clients have now become accustomed to us receiving their services in new ways. A lot of times it's done online or at our drive-through. And as COVID is retreating, we need to consider how we can continue to provide those balanced access points, because it's been very successful to use the drive-through in some of these online ways. And as long as we're allowed to legally, we want to continue to create those opportunities for our clients and for our staff. However, that does stretch staff a little bit thin, and we want to avoid any cybersecurity opportunities that may exist by having more of an online presence for services. Operations has the ability to repurpose our mission to accommodate agency need and create these efficiencies and be that infrastructure to deliver those services. But we want to make sure that we're doing this, we're covering our routine operational workflows as well and not burning out our staff. So our business process team, I've asked them to engage in a post-COVID scope and look at our workflows and where we can adapt things so that we make sure we're creating those access points without stressing out staff. Public health state accreditation is coming up in 2024, and because of COVID, they've delayed a lot of site visits in the local level. So instead of our it was supposed to happen 2 years ago actually, we're going to have to present 6 years worth of evidence, and that's 48 benchmarks and 141 activities per year. So it's going to be massive this time. We will take it one piece at a time and make that happen. Challenges, hiring of a bilingual positions, specifically Spanish-speaking. We've increased the volume of Spanish-speaking clients in human services, and it makes bilingual staffing critical to our service delivery. Often having fewer applicants that come into that pool, and when they do come in, they aren't able to pass our skill-based test scores or have the necessary experience in order to help us succeed in that space, and we don't want to set them up for failure. So it's just a tough space to keep staff retained and recruit. Opportunities, the Human Service Academy to educate our staff across these divisions and to create that informed, unified team and get people engaged in a branding on the front end that is not silo-based. So they look at themselves as a human service employee rather than DSS or public health. Aligning the human service goal with the county customer service value of next mile service, so that you're not limited to the bucket that you sit in, but you can see beyond where you sit and help plug those clients in. And we hope to do that through the Human Service Academy. And that is it. Is there any questions?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Collections, what is most of that, what categories would the money that?
Medicaid. It's part of the Medicaid program. And we have 4 investigators, a human service supervisor that oversees them, and 1 collections position currently. And they engage in research and investigations when they get referrals. The referral can be anonymous. It can come through the state. It can come through our own agency. And then they look into whether it's an overpayment and overissuance through inadvertent household error, Agency error is a potential, or IPVs, the program violations. And then we have hearings. If it's substantiated, we bring them in, and they have an opportunity to tell their side of what happened. And then we have a hearing officer that hears it and makes a ruling in the county or for the client. And then we do give them an opportunity. They can sign up for voluntary payback. There's different ways. We have been collecting money, but not aggressively and not proactively. It's kind of just more as they're coming in. So we've been really working hard to develop that program.
That's a lot of money.
Yes, sir. And it gets divided up. When we do make the collections, 20 to 35% of it comes back to Union County, and then the balance goes to the state. But it doesn't come back into Human Services, it actually goes back to the county.
Commissioner Helms.
Yes, I think one thing you omitted is tell them about our Consolidated Human Services Board, that each one of your representatives here participated. I've had the privilege of participating for the last 9 years, and it's remarkable how you work for the people of Union County to ensure that we provide the safest environment here in the county, and you need to be commended on that. So you want to talk about accomplishments, that's one that all of you can participate in achieving. We've got a couple volunteers from the community that participated as well, and we appreciate that. And I think, David, this is your first year on that board, isn't it? And I promise you, you'll enjoy that and be impressed with the representation that we have here today.
Well, it's a privilege to work for the county. I really do feel that way, and I'm a resident of the county, and I really enjoy the team that I get to work with and the leadership that I've had the privilege to work for.
Well, it's obvious watching y'all work together.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa Torres. She's the Director of Transportation.
Commissioner Williams has one.
Yes, sir. I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation, Jackie. Just one question. I noticed earlier that Human Services hadn't developed performance measurement processes yet. Is that something that you're working on, or can you give some insight into performance measures? I know it's something that, as a county organization writ large, that is a big focus, and I'm a believer certainly in measuring our performance, and would just like you to speak to that.
Yes, sir. Well, coming from a QI background, what gets measured gets done. So we definitely want to consider that. And I look at how the audits come back, how accreditation comes back, things of that nature in each program. Public Health, for example, has program audits every 3 years within their clinical services. So if we're doing our job to support them, then hopefully those should come back well. We do have financial administration or administrative audits that are done in my division as well in finance. Things of that nature should come back clean, or the caps that we put together should be accepted by the state. The same thing with accreditation. We want to be accredited with honors, not just accredited, because we do great things in that space. So as far as specific measures, I have worked with the county. We've talked about some things. One of the things we looked at, we talked about the 60,000 plus folks that have come through our lobby. Well, it's hard to measure that because they're coming there for a multitude of services. So they may wait 10 minutes or they may wait 20, depending upon where they're going in the building. So to measure my staff on the front end for how long they're sitting really isn't a fair measure, or the folks behind me, their agencies, because we all have to work in tandem and make that work. So I guess the best answer to that is through my business process unit, we do assess workflows and see how are we processing people. Can we do it better? It's that CQI culture and mindset and moving the whole agency toward that one team. That's been a big focus that we've spent a lot of time on. And how we get there, I think we'll have to continue to build that out. I could look at specific numbers in the accreditation bucket because that is measured by the state, and they look at 5 different areas of function within public health, but that's shared with Mr. Joyner, things of that nature. So almost everything we touch is shared. So we will be working on that, and I'm sure we will come up with something that we can measure specifically. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members, and County Manager Watson, thank you for having me here today. My name is Teresa Torres. I am the Director of Transportation. When we look at our strategic objectives, it is hard for us to pick just one. I have highlighted sustainability, but in the next slide, you will see that transportation encompasses most, if not all, of the objectives. Our department provides safe, efficient, and appropriate transportation options for the residents of Union County. We are Union County's only source of non-emergency transportation for county residents, with almost all trips being provided at no cost to our riders. This is possible through the combination of grant and county funds. In the last 2.5 years, even with the impacts of COVID, transportation has provided over 173,800 trips to over 1,500 unique clients. We transport county residents to places of employment. In FY21, we completed 17,687 trips to work. We work collaboratively with Medicaid, senior nutrition, and veteran services to transport their clients safe in county resources. We randomly survey our clients regarding their satisfaction with safety measures implemented to ensure their onboard safety during the scheduling process. This includes one of our new COVID protocols for sanitizing our vehicles multiple times a day to keep our passengers safe and healthy. Our satisfaction rating has been over 95% for the last 2.5 years. Current investment. I would like to bring your attention to Transportation's adopted FY21 budget of $2,281,000. Of that, the county funds cover $853,000. Over $1,427,000 comes in from form of state and federal grants that help pay for administrative, operation, and capital costs. While funding is necessary, it is our entire transportation team that actually makes this service successful. You will see I have highlighted the 24 part-time driver positions. The reason for this is because out of 24 part-time driver positions, only 9 are actively filled. Part-time positions have always been hard to fill. Since the pandemic, there has been a steady decline in applications. We see a stark contrast in our part-time and full-time employees. We find that the full-time employees fare more positively with retention rate, the number of safety events, and overall productivity. Measuring our success. Efficiency, safety, and customer satisfaction are our top priorities. We measure our success by tracking a few performance measures. We monitor average miles per trip. We can effectively manage vehicle replacement and establish optimal preventative maintenance schedules by doing this. Safety management helps us understand our training and safety needs by indicating the number of safety events we have had per 100,000 vehicle revenue miles. Looking at our safety management, you will see an increase from FY20 to FY21. Transportation started reporting all incidents and accidents, no matter the severity, in FY20. Before FY21, minor incidents and accidents were unreported. When we look at trips per revenue hour, the regional average is 1.65. In FY19, 21, and 22, you will see that we were at 1.8. In FY20, our trips per revenue mile were at 2.0. Reaching and maintaining 2.0 is our goal moving forward. Customers are at the heart of our business. For that reason, we measure their satisfaction by randomly surveying them throughout the year and have improved this aspect over time. Our recent accomplishments. This slide demonstrates that transportation has had quite a few accomplishments through the years. I attribute this to our hardworking, safety, and efficiency-driven transportation team. Each team member is truly committed to serving the residents of Union County, and all take pride in what they do. Our accomplishments are based on a few key areas. We have become highly focused on recruiting, developing, and retaining an awesome team of drivers and office support staff who have the knowledge, resources, and support each other We are committed to providing quality service in most efficient and effective manner, and have thus processes improved efforts have been ongoing. As a steward of public funds, we work to maximize availability to our fiscal resources and maintain audit-worthy records and compliance process. In FY19, we implemented a pre-hire ride-along. Many driver applicants do not realize what it takes to be a Union County driver. They think it's strictly window, sitting in a chair and driving, but our drivers are responsible for so much more. They have the safety of their passengers on board, everyone that's outside around them driving. They have to follow county, state, and federal policies and procedures. For this reason, we felt it would be important for qualified applicants to ride along with a UCT driver so they can see what they need to do in the course of their day. We have increased new hire driver training from 3 days to 2 weeks, with the goal of ensuring our new drivers understand the position and are given the training they need to succeed. To improve communications and encourage feedback, we created a driver advisory board that includes representation from full-time, benefited part-time, and part-time drivers who are elected by their peers. We have created position manuals for all administrative positions and streamlined our Medicaid reservation call management process. Seeking to maximize funding resources, we applied for and received 5307 grant funds to assist with trips to or from the county's urban area. In FY20, we implemented online driver scheduling. Additionally, with an eye on customer service, we created online passenger registrations and electronic forms to submit ADA policy modifications, compliments and complaints, and implement random phone surveys. In an effort to minimize direct costs to the county, we began using our newly awarded grant funding to transport veterans and nutrition clients to their appointments. Since FY20, we have completed 1,816 veteran trips and 8,109 nutrition trips. We continued operations during COVID and implemented a vehicle sanitation protocol to keep passengers and drivers healthy. In FY21, we increased our fiscal management capacity by expanding the billing position to full-time. We have had several audits in FY21, including audits from the NCDOT, FTA, and Area Agency on Aging. Those audits have all been successfully completed. We implemented an IVR system which automatically calls passengers at night to remind them of their appointments the next day. This eliminated the need for our drivers to take 15 to 30 minutes an evening to call each passenger, and it also allows our passengers to cancel and confirm appointments. We improved dispatch radio communications. With the goal of improving driver safety, we revised our radio system to display vehicle identification in the event of emergency where a driver cannot identify themselves. Not only did we safely continue our operations during COVID, but we partnered with Senior Nutrition to deliver our meals to our seniors. Since June 2021, transportation has delivered over 13,500 meals. We have provided 872 vaccine trips, including shuttle to vaccine sites for Pilgrim Pride employees, and extended our hours to evenings and Saturdays to complete these trips. We've received $33,832 in vaccine funding, and that paid for the trips and any overtime incurred by our drivers. We also partnered with the Board of Elections to help shuttle voters to the polling sites during that time. In FY22, we have begun working with business operations to create a comprehensive guide of policies and procedures and frequently asked questions. Our goal is to have a consistent, straightforward information and process that all passengers and drivers can understand. We initiated phase 1 of our part-time to full-time driver conversion. We created an employee spotlight board where staff can recognize their fellow teammates on a job well done. At the beginning of FY21, a 5307 task force was created to look at the current 5307 formula to ensure each subrecipient was getting its appropriate share. After a year of meetings, collaboration, and with the help of Janet Payne, Chairman Rate, and Vice Chair Williams, in FY22, the formula was changed to reflect a more appropriate allocation of subrecipients. Our allocation went from $311,000 in FY22 to $969,000 in FY23. And it now includes both operational and capital funding. We are starting to see our trip numbers increase and believe we will be back to pre-COVID numbers in the coming months. In FY20 and 22, transportation has received over $3 million in CARES, ARP, and Carissa transit funds. We are working diligently to use these supplemental funds to bolster necessary resources and minimize direct county expenses.
Mr. Chairman, well, I apologize for interrupting. Can you go back to that previous slide?
Sure.
I think for the people that may be watching this at home, the voter shuttle is not that you're going and picking up voters and taking them to the polls, but it's like at one of the fire departments, they park.
Yes, sir.
And you shuttle them to the location.
Correct.
It's not that you're going around neighborhoods picking up people and saying, let's go vote, and by the way, we want you to vote this way.
No,
You're-
it was-
They're there to vote, you're helping them get from the parking lot to the poll.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Key initiatives. Our first initiative is to enable and sustain organizational structure and strengthen the Transportation Department service provision capability. We can do this by the phased transition of some of our part-time drivers to full-time. It is important to ensure our ability to continue to meet service demands. As mentioned before, full-time drivers have a greater ownership of their position, and as a result, they have higher retention, fewer safety events, and higher productivity. There is zero county cost in FY23 to convert these positions. We will use CARES, ARPA, and Carissa funds to cover the additional costs. In future years, as COVID funds are exhausted, county funds would be needed to cover these expansions. Our second key initiative is to transfer to a direct recipient for the FTA for 5307 funding. NCDOT's Integrated Mobility Division is transitioning administration of the 5307 Urban Formula Program to the respective urbanized area transit providers who will become direct recipients of FTA funds. While this mandate transition of administrative responsibility will ultimately result in Union County having overall greater autonomy to our access to grant funding, it will also result in loss of oversight of the NCDOT, who currently acts as our grant coordinator, ensuring that we are following proper FTA and state regulations. Transit agencies who have recently transitioned to the direct recipient indicate that added oversight has increased their workload by about 1 to 1.5 FTEs. Therefore, we are asking for a new position to assist in ensuring successful coordination and implementation of transportation's fiscal and compliance-related activities, including grant management and oversight, safety training, billing program components, and in addition, this position will allow us a greater opportunity to identify and secure the maximum amount of grant funding and help us realize the goal of offsetting county funds needed to serve passengers. We have requested in our 5303 planning grant that this position be covered by 90% FTA funds. And our third is to ensure availability of appropriate vehicles to maintain ongoing safety and admin work and support partner programs through the purchase of 2 pool cars. This initiative meets 2 of our performance measures. One of the measures is safety management, as our safety officer would be using this vehicle to complete safety evaluations. The other is average miles per trip. The FTA does not consider meal delivery revenue miles, so we can't count it. So it would be in the county's best interest to have vehicles that are not in our fleet to do those trips. The vehicles will be covered 80% by a grant. Our future issues and challenges. As we talk about issues and challenges and opportunities that transportation sees in the future, we want to talk about a few key items. The vehicle inventory and chip shortage are causing concern not only for our vehicles far exceeding useful life, but also for fear of increasing vehicle costs. When we prepare our budget, we are going off the current pricing. The potential for vehicle pricing to go up by 20% concerns us on how we're going to cover that increase. As the automobile industry moves toward electric vehicles, this could present a challenge and an opportunity for UCT and the county. If we educate ourselves and start preparing now, it could be an easy, rewarding transition. We need to look at how we could service the EVs, what equipment we would need, and to probably run day-to-day operations of the vehicles. In FY23, we'd like to expand our work with other transit agencies on a regional coordination plan with the goal of helping our county residents access resources in neighboring counties. As previously mentioned, our staff are our most valuable resource. There is a nationwide driver shortage, and since COVID, we have been impacted by lack of local qualified applicants. This has strained our resources and adds concern about maintaining a healthy workforce. We are committed to supporting staff and working to decrease staff burnout and increase staff morale. Having a robust software system will allow transportation to optimize schedules in an effective manner, which will provide UCT the opportunity to increase ridership. It will simplify scheduling for passengers and employees. And then eventually moving on to the progress building. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question so much, but just a comment. I think in your presentation, you had mentioned among the recent accomplishments that you collaborated on the change to the 5307 formula. I think perhaps the department's being a bit too humble there. You did more than collaborate. To my mind, you were a persistent advocate and perhaps a squeaky wheel, which sometimes I think is called for, especially when you're interacting with CartPo. And at the end of the day, we made a big difference. We went from basically $350,000 to $1 million year after year after year. So my hat's off to you. My hat's off to the entire organization. Those are dollars that make a distinct difference. And I'm just really proud of what you've been able to do there. So,
Thank you.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that stood out to me in a previous presentation and then this one, looking for bilingual employees and looking for employees, we have a lack of drivers. I was going to say something that I decided not to, but this just hits me again. I actually was a supervisor of a young lady who grew up in Union County, graduated from Union County Public Schools. Her parents spoke Spanish, therefore she spoke Spanish. And she was working one day and said, I need to go to Health and Human Services, and came back and said, I got to quit. I said, why do you have to quit? Well, I make too much money to get assistance. And that struck me that, that there's a situation where, that people are being sent to Health and Human Services. Maybe they just had a baby, so whatever's going on in the family that they're looking for a little bit of assistance, but they just make too much money. Is this a legislative change in the national legislation or something that we can do? You have, in my business, I have a shooting range, and I have people come there for classes, and they need to find a place to shoot, and it works out really great. You have a place where people need assistance, whether it's your department or any other department, they need assistance. And if they could have one of those part-time jobs as well and not be penalized with assistance for that, that just looks like a win-win for us and them and the bilingual needs and everything else. So is there something that we need to do to fix that, if whether it's contacting a congressman or contacting the state, or where do those problems come from that people can't help themselves while getting assistance?
I'm going to defer to somebody else in that department, but I would probably say contact your congressman and have that conversation.
Yeah, because again, when you're trying to recruit bilingual people and businesses out there are trying to recruit them as well, but they can't recruit them because they're coming to get assistance. It's just a headache. It's really, that broke me down pretty bad that day, I will tell you that. That, again, they made too much money to get help, or any kind of help, and they had to quit so they could get help. It just is counterproductive to what we're doing here. Thanks.
Commissioner Rushing, Ms. Lancaster's not with us this afternoon, but she's watching. So, but I don't know of anyone better to answer your question and to provide some potential solutions than she can. So I'm going to ask her to, at the next budget workshop, to bring back some possible solutions for you at that time. Mr. Chairman, given the time of the afternoon it is, and I know that this is Valentine's Day, we do have 4 other presentations that are waiting as part of Human Services, and that could take at least another 45 minutes. So if it is the board's pleasure, we would like to reschedule these 4 presentations for your next budget workshop and make best use of everyone's time this afternoon.
Thank you for reading my text.
Oh, is that what it says?
Hey, I thought we were all in love with county government here. I thought, this is happening that way?
We are. We are, but
I
today our
I
significant.
do want to say one thing. I really appreciate the level of engagement that the board has this afternoon, and the staff's put a lot of time into their presentations, and it's evident that you are listening by the questions that are being asked, and we appreciate the level of engagement. That's what we want.
I will say one thing. I didn't think, at first, he said, let's do 2 of the 4. And then I said, well, my crew's waiting on me at the, so, Mr. Manager, do you have any other further comments?
I just have a couple of items that I want to make sure that the board is aware of. This afternoon, we did start staff level meetings with UCPS staff related to budget. As you recall, last year we were doing that every other week, and we started those today. Mr. Nyland, I understand we have a fire chiefs meeting tomorrow night, and EMS the following. Do you have times and content on that for the board?
Yes, sir. The fire chiefs meeting will be tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. This is the one that SPCC will be there to talk about the training needs of the volunteer fire departments and emergency medical providers moving forward. The following night at Health and Human Services will be the start of the EMS stakeholders group. Commissioner Rushing and Commissioner Helms are on that committee with a number of other individuals in the first responder community. There will be 1 meeting a month between February and June, and at the end of that, a report will be delivered to the full board to say the outcomes of that. So again, that'll be 1 meeting a month between now and June of this year.
And the location for the fire chiefs meeting, sir?
That'll be the Jackson Volunteer Fire Department.
Thank you.
And that's at 6:30?
They're providing a meal, so the meal will start at 6:30 and the meeting will begin at 7.
Okay, tomorrow. All right, thank you.
Reminder to all commissioners, on Friday, this board is scheduled to have a joint meeting with the Village of Marvin to begin at 11 a.m. And for the lunch hour, have some fellowship and some interaction with the Village of Marvin Council, and that is at Firethorn Clubhouse, 11 o'clock Friday. And just as a reminder, next Monday, you have regular Board of County Commissioners meeting, 5 p.m., closed session, 6 p.m., regular meeting. That's all I have this evening, Mr. Chair.
I make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.